Hi everybody, my name is Betty Gaedtke and I'm a member of the Quapaw Nation and I do Quapaw Mississippian pottery. And I just want to talk to you briefly about the Quapaws, the form of technique that they did when they made their pottery was through the coil method. And I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of that today. I do have a few pots sitting around here in various stages. The thing about pottery, when your clay is wet, you can only work so long. You cannot keep adding a bunch of weight to it without it collapsing. So, sometimes it might take me up to a week to finish a vessel. So, just to start with, here's just a few things that I've got on the table. Also, the books in the background are really a lot of where I get my inspiration. For instance, this tripod vessel, you can see, it's my creation, but I took my inspiration off this picture. When I decorate this, I decorated it in slip, which is basically a diluted down clay. And I take mine and grind it into a powder, and then I add water to it. And you come up with something basically, like this. So that's going to last me a long time. And you just keep adding water to it and just paint it on with the paintbrush. And I do the same thing with the white. These are colors that the Quapaw Nation are known for. They're really basically the only tribe that decorated in these colors. And you can see in these books, they had all kinds of different shapes and sizes. And right now I'm working on some animal effigy pots. And this one right here is a buffalo. And I plan on doing a vessel, animal effigy vessel for every clan in my tribe. I happen to be part of the buffalo clan, so I did mine first. Again, I've got a little pot going here, and it's pretty wet, but it's starting to set up a little bit, hold its shape. If I set it on the table, I'm sure it probably would not keep the bottom round. It's still too wet for that. So again, a method that I do just to keep the rim wet is wetting a piece of fabric and putting it on there and try and get the rest of this dried out. You can see I've got some marks. There's always cleanup, every step of the way there's cleanup. So we'll just sit him back in here. So the Quapaws, like I said, did this coil method, and they would just add a row at a time. They were they had a sense of humor, so a lot of the pieces that they produced, especially along like the effigy table of animals, they have, funny looks on their face. So I try to stay with that. Also, something like this was really big. This is a hooded female effigy vessel, and it's got the spines. A lot of them are humpback and spindly arms, but this would be something that maybe the Quapaws would have stored seed in because they did not want something to fall down into it. So you can see that this is on the back, probably to help save, debris from mixing in with whatever they wanted to put into that. So with all that, this is pretty much, it's just an introduction to the Quapaw and their pottery. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get something out of it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Hey everybody, my name is Betty Gaedtke, and I'm down in my studio, and I thought I would just share a couple things with you. I make Quapaw pottery, and one of the things that the Quapaw did were the coil work. So I just kind of rolled some of this out in a thick manner and just kind of sliced them. And then I'm going to roll these and turn them into a coil. So I'll just lay them to the side, and I'm not going to use all of them. I can spritz them a little bit if I want to and put a plastic over them, and that will keep it moist. So you can see how they grow. They don't have to be perfect. You can see they're not perfect. That doesn't really matter because we're going to be working it anyway. So let's do one more right here, and then we're going to go over to the vessel that I'm working on. All right, so let's take this over to the vessel. Okay, so now we're back over here across the room, and I'm just adding the coils to this existing pot. I lifted up, but it's still very wet. So I've already added the coil around the top of this, and now I'm just going around and I'm pinching it thinner. I'm going to do this all the way around the top of the edge. And then, you know, as I'm pinching it, it's making that wall thinner and pushing the clay up. I use a paddle quite a bit, and I use a scraper. So you can see it's starting to lose its shape. So I would take a little time and just start pulling this rim into the inside a little bit. And anytime you push on clay, whether it's the inside of a pot or the outside, you need to put some kind of support behind it. All right, that might help see a little bit. You know, you can see I have a lot to smooth out here. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to go around this pot 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 times. And, you know, as you go along, you're stretching the clay thinner and thinner. And that's what we're striving for, is a nice thin pot. It's going to take a little bit of doing. And of course, I've got to come back and do the same thing to the inside. Okay, so I'll come back and maybe pat this with a paddle, and you can see I'm stretching that clay up. And of course, I'm going to come back and work on the inside just as soon as I kind of paddle some of this clay back in. You know, you can see that the bow is going, you know, like a triangle. And we want to bring those walls that are up here back in straight, if not curve them in. So we'll just go around this couple 2 or 3 times. Kind of pull it up as you paddle it. You can see it's making the walls thinner. So this pot is growing. It's very wet clay right now. It's a good thing. Can you see how I'm just kind of paddling and stretching in an upward motion? Okay, so, you know, we've kind of stretched this up on the outside. You can, oops, you can see it's starting to stand up taller. And then we're going to come back and maybe try and start working it in. All right. Then I'm going to come back because you've got to work on the inside of your pot as well as the outside, because this is going to be a wide mouth pot and you're going to be able to see all that in there. So I'll just take my scraper and maybe pull this up. You can see there's a line through here. And this is where we added our coil, so we definitely have to work on that and work that line out. And the clay at the top is still thicker than the walls below it. So we're probably going to have to, the patience is the most important thing. And I didn't used to have any. And I have found patience. If you just be calm and cool, take your time, You know, you may not get her done going around that rim the first time or even the second time, but just keep stretching it up. We're getting there. You can see it's starting to look a little smoother and thinner. And then we're going to let this pot rest after I work on the inside just a little bit. It's too wet to add another coil. So what we're going to do, so that I can come back to this later, you can see that looks a whole lot better, but there's still a lot to do on it. And that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cover up the rim. So I have these little cloth strips that I soak in the sink, and because we don't want the top rim to dry out, I'm just going to add just a little damp cloth around here. And then we're going to walk away from it for a little while. I've got another one. You can see that that's uneven, but that's not a big deal right now because we'll catch it up on the next coil that we add to it. Maybe if I added a coil that might be just a hair thicker here, by the time we build it all up and stretch it thin, it should come out pretty level. But, you know, if it doesn't, that's what this tool's for. We'll just trim it off level and keep going. So that's all I have for the moment. Come back and join in and we'll try and get this pot finished. Hi everybody, Betty Gaedtke here. We're back. We let this pot set for a while. I actually moved on and did some other work on some other vessels, and I'm coming back to it today. So when we left it, I put these little wet pieces, strips of fabric, and put them just over the lip of your pot to keep that part of your vessel wet. And then, of course, you know, we're trying to get this down here to set up a little better. So right now, I'm not taking it out of this holder. So what we did before we finished, I went around and pinched again all the way around, trying to make this top edge as thin as I can. Now, it's pretty thin, down, you know, a good inch. And then, you know, we're kind of losing the levelness of the pot. So I went around and just kind of rough hand took the lowest spot on the pot, and I'm just going to run my sharp tool around here because the clay is still very soft, and just trying to even this, level it out, I guess, a little bit better. So, because we're getting ready to add another coil. So, just throw these over here to the side. I've got water over here to keep these wet. And I use that for bonding pieces together. A lot of my work has a lot of applique to it. Basically, that's what we're doing here as well. All right. These are really thin. And they're not going to be completely perfect, but that's okay. All right. Right here. Okay, so we've kind of trimmed this top edge. You can see it's a little more level. It's not perfect, but it's good. It's better. So now what I want to do is I want to just curve in the edges just a little bit more. And I can do that a couple, 2 or 3 different ways. So one of them is that we could just take a scraper and lightly scrape and bend in. And of course, you always want to support the back side of your clay because it is wet. All right, so we just want to go around. I've got a lot to take out as far as wrinkles and stuff, but I'm not really concerned about that right now. I'll work on it more after I put another rope on it. Okay, so that's a little nicer. Always try and keep your circle straight. Another thing that you can do is just kind of tap it, and you can see that takes some of the wrinkles out. You're not going to accomplish what you want all in one setting. I'm going to be working on this lightly 2 or 3, 4 times in a circle as it's going around. And it's also stretching that clay, and it's also making it just a little bit thinner so that we can add another coil. See how it's coming out? All right. All right, another thing I'm going to do is just lightly pat the top and try and force it in. And then the next coil, we're going to work it in even more. All right. That's a good place to start anyway. All right, so when I'm putting 2 pieces of clay together, I always score the clay. And when I say score, it's basically just roughing it up and making an uneven surface. So, all right, here's my little scraper. I keep losing the handle on it, so I gave up. And so I'm just going to go around here. You can see what I mean, how I'm making these gouges in the clay. One of the things I also do is when I'm putting 2 pieces of clay together, I try to make sure they're moist. So I'm just going to put a little bit of water on here. And then while I'm working on my coil or my rope, that can be breaking down this clay just a little bit. There we go. All right. So now we're going to do a coil or a rope. And I've got some already made up here. So if you'll just... Okay, so here's a couple coils. Might as well start with the longest one. And I also score them. So just rough up one side of it. Do it on both of them. One's probably not going to go all the way around. And again, I will add a little water to that. It helps your clay to seal together. So now I'm just going to take this and I'm going to adhere it. Just go around and squeeze them together. All right, I don't like how that looks, so we're just going to make that a little wider. All right, so when I join 2 pieces together, you can see how I just kind of flattened that out, and so that it's not just a big hunk like this. And I'm going to do the same thing to there, and we're going to score that as well, and just pick up again. All right, so now we've got the coil. Now we want to work it. And again, I'm going to go around and squeeze these and make sure that they both are adhered to the rim of the bowl. And it's kind of the same process as we did before. We're just going to squeeze these. All right, so now we want to take our thumb and just start pulling that clay down. And make sure you hold the vessel on the back side, or it's just going to, see how that gives? So we want to make sure that we give it some stability on the back side. Once we get this just kind of pulled down, we'll come back and clean it up. Okay, so we've pulled it down on the outside. You know, we're just going to go back and clean it up. That's where your little scraper might come in handy. And just kind of work it in. I'm not going to do a whole lot of it on this go around because we've still got to do the inside. All right, so now we're going to work a little bit on the inside. You can see that that's got to be all joined together. I might even use my scraper for this. Just start working it. It's already half the thickness that we put on there. We just want to stretch this up a little further. You can see I've kind of lost my curving end, but that's okay. It's very wet and I'll be able to pick right back up and get it back right where I started. Ready? Okay, so I want to just work this back in a little bit. So here's a little pinch pot that I made, and I like the curvature on it, and I use it a lot to help form the rim going in. Starting to take its shape again. The clay's still pretty thick. It's going to take a lot more thinning to get it where I want it. It's just a process, you know. I think the Quapaws made a lot of their tools. They made them out of ceramics. They made them out of bone, wood. You can see that it's starting to take its shape again. So let's just take a scraper. This one's rubber. You know, the Quapaws didn't use rubber. Would have been more like a shell or a handmade tool. But you can see how that's cleaning up pretty good. It all takes time. This is going to be a pretty good sized pot. Let's just work it in a little more. This clay is really soft, so it can be manipulated pretty easily right now. Okay, so I've been working on this for a little while. It takes me several days to do a pot because you do have to keep walking away from it, letting, you know, the clay dry just a little bit and gain some strength. And, you know, if we keep working on this while it's wet like it is, it'll just collapse. It's not going to be able to keep taking on all that weight. And you can see we're starting to curve in. I'm going to work on curving this in a little more because I don't want this vessel to go up in height anymore. So I want a nice round rim on it. and we'll come back and add another one. So basically I've just showed you how to put a coil on, which is what the Quapaws did. And we're just going to keep repeating the process until we get what we want out of this vessel. So I'm going to pinch it a little thinner. And again, when I get ready to let it set, I'm going to take these wet pieces of fabric and put around the rim. And all that's going to do is keep the rim from drying out. And we want the rest of this to dry out so that it can, you know, the drier this gets, the more weight that we can keep putting on top. So that's our goal right here, right now. So, all right, that's pretty much it for right now. Stay tuned and come back for another layer, and we'll get this pot made. All right. Okay, so we're back, and you can see that this vessel has taken on a little bit of different shape. I've curved it. You know, I still need to burnish shot it and take some of, you know, this out. I'm going to either decorate it in red and white slip paint, or I'm going to incise on it. But right now I'm going to put the rim on. So I've already scored it. I've already scored both pieces of clay, and I'm just going to take this around. All right, so I'm going to just slice through here, and I always do it at an angle. It adheres better. And of course, same thing as everything else, you want to score both pieces of clay. All right. This clay's a little wetter than I expected, but I think it's still going to hold up. So I'm just kind of pushing these two pieces of clay together, lining it up. You can see on the inside. All right, so now I'm just going to take a tool and just pull it down to make that seal, and I'm going to do this on the inside and the outside. It's soft enough that it's going right into it. All right, just pushing that clay down to join the two together. All right, so you can see I've pretty much got it. I'm going to come back, clean all this up, and I might even add a bead to this, a bead of clay, which would basically consist of another rope that would be much, much thinner, just to put right in through here and blend it in and give it just a little bit more strength and stability. All right, and all the time I want to try and keep this upright. Oops. All right. You can see the inside needs to be taken care of as well. All right, so that's pretty much adhered. You can see I still need to pull the sides up. You can see where it makes a difference, standing it up versus flaring out. I want this one to just stand up straight. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with this rim as far as incising or painting on it. Hi again, Betty Gaedtke here. Okay, so I have completed the pot, and this is what it looks like. It's got a round bottom on it, see. And now it's time to decorate it. And I'm decorating with different slips that I have ground down into a powder and then added water to it, and I'm putting it on with a paintbrush. So this is a rough end of it. You can see I start out by trying to do some kind of swirl on it, and then I come back and try to perfect it. You can see this needs a lot of work here, so that's not done. We're getting better right in through here. So, and again, you can see how I have to just keep working both of them. So, we're going to finish up with the red slip on this one. And just try and stay in between the lines. If you don't, it just means more repair work. You can see I've kind of got into the white, and again, this is just kind of a rough end. Then I'll come back. Again, we'll just rough it in, then we'll come back. And I'm not going to fill this in all the way to the white line, because I think the white needs to be a little bit wider. So, again, and you can see. Obviously, I'm going to come back here, add a little more white. There we go. And this is pretty thin. Boy, gauge this just right. Just about out of the red slip. Alright. So that gives you an idea anyway. So there's still a lot of work to be done on here, but this is how I'm decorating today on this vessel with red slip and white slip. Now this clay is white, so of course, you know, I do a patina on it, and I'm gonna burnish the whites, which will make it smoother, and it'll take the smoke a little bit different than something with a little less texture on it. So hope you enjoyed it. Come back and we'll do it again.